time today in the center of Beijing when a man walked to the middle of the avenue of eternal peace.
All right, welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast. Well, from the title of the episode, we're about to be overrun or not. That's what we're going to kind of get into. A lot of people are worried right now that things are getting crazy with the border, right? We had all these cities come up a little while back, about 3 months ago, where they're like, "Hey, we love immigrants. Immigrants are great." And then the immigrants got shipped off to all their cities, and then like New York, we're like, "Whoa, we got a problem." And
Wait a minute. Yeah.
yeah, we're not sure we want to pay for this. And we heard crazy numbers. But then we kept seeing a lot of stuff about, oh, there's all these Chinese immigrants coming across the border. And, oh, it's all MS-13 and gangs and, military aged people coming over the border. So basically, we did a ton of research. We dug down and we're going to kind of unpack it all. If this is the kind of thing that interests you, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, like the show, because we're going to get into some great stuff and you don't want to miss a trick. So, Kevin, I mean, I keep seeing, all these videos. You'll see like, it's funny because it's like 30 Chinese guys lined up at the border coming in and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, we're coming." And I was looking at the stats. There is a lot of stuff going on, but I also see it's not maybe as bad as we think it is. I mean, definitely we have open borders. We're ridiculous compared to other countries. It is that bad. I mean, that part's all true.
Mhm.
But
Well, let's start
worse
with
than it ever was. I don't know.
yeah. So I mean, let's start with some of that like news reporting. I was watching a video recently, and they love like live shots of like like hordes of people.
The mile-long line when they were coming out of Venezuela, and
Yep. So I was going through some of these videos, and something stood out to me. Like there was this guy wearing this bright red shirt, and I was like, I've seen that guy before. And I started doing some research, and I found a video where they're going through it, and they're showing the same goddamn video over and over again. Every time for like 6 months, they're saying there's a big crowd at the point, and they show the same fucking video. Like, I mean, get some new shots, guys. I mean, is it just not as crowded, and they just want to show the one crowded video they have where, and I mean, it was that one guy with the red shirt that kept fucking it up because he was, everybody else was all blended together, but, just get some new footage. That's all I'm saying. You can't scream about the border is worse than ever and then show a video from 6 months ago.
Exactly. And that's, I think, like, that's not necessarily because there isn't new things happening on the border every day. That's because our news media is just lazy. And they're just like, oh, people coming across the border. I mean, it's one thing if you have a guy like me who's trying to scrap together a show from, hey, I can get this picture, I can get that. Obviously, I'm not going down to the border from North Carolina to go get footage for this week because I know you guys are great and everything, but I only have so much of an audience. I know you guys look at us and you're like, Kevin, Chuck, you guys are rock stars. And you guys, you have the resources to do this kind of thing. Well, I'm not quite Sean Hannity yet. I mean, maybe next week. Every year we're just edging up. But, if you guys, smash the like button, that would definitely probably push us over the edge where I could do the border trip. Kevin and I should down there.
I should say that you should like and subscribe because every time we do an episode like this, the CCP sends out like their fucking bots to downvote the video. So just beware. Any video we do about China goes downhill fast.
They're like downvote. Yeah, we have that effect. But I was going to say I was afraid to get down to the border with Kevin because they might snatch you up and be like, no, you're not coming back across.
Not coming back, bro.
They're like, nah.
That Taliban beard and stuff. No, they're not letting me back up.
I don't think so. Yeah, there is a lot going on down there. but it's maybe not quite the way we see it. And I feel like both sides, we always go back to this where the Republicans and the Democrats, the right and the left are just both show you exactly what they want you to see.
Right.
The Democrats are showing you with Trump putting babies in cages and, really it's just a crib, but, I don't know. And the other one, they have, Obama's got kids in cages on the other one. It's just ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
But
And I'm going to let you in on a secret.
tell me.
Democrats love to have immigrants come over here because,
And
like, one part, it's like bleeding heart, like, oh, these poor people. Another part, it's like these are future voters. Yeah, illegal immigrants bring down the pay scale for everybody. And corporations love that shit. And so the Republicans are all funded by corporations.
secretly love that too.
Nobody's going to
Right.
do shit about it. Nobody's going to do nothing about it because it's helping them out. So if you're worried about like the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, like causing like big changes in the immigration situation, it's not. Nobody's doing shit. Nobody's doing a goddamn thing about it, and nobody's gonna do a goddamn thing about it.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just watching an interview and they were talking about California and all the people voting, and they're all excited. They're going to all be Democrats and all this, right? And I know there's like some kind of an amendment to not let people who come over to the border, if they're not citizens, they can't vote. And they're talking about doing that. But it's funny because there is an amendment and it already says you have to be a citizen.
It already exists, right? Agree. And I
stop
heard people say the shit.
Yeah.
If you don't agree with this amendment, then you're a treasonous asshole.
Yeah.
But that amendment already exists. It's just making more laws to make shit more confusing and more complicated so we can't actually do anything. So it's actually causing the opposite effect of what they're saying it is.
It does say a federal election that you need to be a citizen to vote. But whatever. We're not going to.
Every state has the same thing, though. Yeah. You know?
So anyway, so California, they're like, yeah, we have all these people. But then they're interviewing all these. And again, once again, it's people showing me what I want to see, right?
Right.
That's what YouTube does. That's what everything does. So they're interviewing all these people and they're saying, well, my goal is to be able to buy a house for my family and to get a job that pays enough that I can do stuff. And I don't see the Democrats helping me achieve that goal. Now, as Kevin just pointed out, we don't really see the Republicans help us achieve that goal either.
Yeah, nobody's doing shit about that.
But it's not like you're like, oh, I'm all in for Biden because he's going to make the American dream for me. That's not happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think he lives in his own dream world, so I don't know about the American dream, but I don't think he's fucking aware of what's going on.
He's in your dream. Just, it's not the American dream.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing, like, gets me wound up just because, I mean, honestly, did you donate $100,000 or more to your local congressman? Because if you haven't, he doesn't give a shit about you. Your senator, you didn't give him $100,000 this year? He don't give a fuck about you.
So when I was in New York,
do better,
right? When I was in New York, Hillary Clinton was my senator. And
the lady from Arkansas, that one?
Yeah, that one. Whitewater? Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
And so they had some kind of anti-gun thing that came up, and I sent her a letter, how dare you, go against the Second Amendment. And sure enough, her office sent me back a letter saying, we're so excited that you agree with us, and don't worry, we're going to keep working hard to, do everything to make your dreams come true. And I'm like, wait, that's not what I said at all.
That's not what the letter said. Yeah. But I mean, they don't give a fuck about you because you didn't give her $100,000, so she doesn't care what your opinion.
Right? If I'd stapled the check, they would have been like, "Yep, now we're all in." Yeah, no, that's exactly what's going on. So let's kind of dig into it. So one of the big things that people are really worried about is the Chinese, right? That was the fear is, or at least the fear mongering kind of thing was, oh, there's all these Chinese immigrants coming across and they're going to be militant and they're all military age males. Well, I have some stats. So first of all, here are the overall border stats and what we're dealing with. And this is from the Border Patrol website. All right. You can look
Mm-hmm.
this up. See, it says source US Border Patrol. This is on their page. I just screenshotted it. All right. So the first one, I think it says single adults. And you see that it's actually down in 2024, but obviously 2024, we're only halfway there. And
Right.
looks like we're more than halfway in the numbers. So it looks like this year is actually a pretty big year, right? Because it says fiscal
Mm-hmm.
year to date. So
Right.
this year is probably going to be more than last year. I wish this kind of went back a little further, but bottom line, it's still on the rise. Like if you, and then the next one, that next category is basically family unit is
Uh-huh.
what they're going for there with that 21 and whatever. And then after that is single minors, which are kids. So I guess kids coming over, that still looks like it's going to be about equal to last year since we're about
Mm-hmm.
a little more than halfway through the year. And it's weird. There's no accompanied minors, but yet that kind of goes back to that family unit kind of thing, part of that. So bottom line,
Right.
immigration's pretty crazy. And these are based on encounters. All right. People that you see it says encounter count. And what that is you
Right.
actually had contact. You didn't just sneak across. Now, another
Mm-hmm.
thing that I found that was concerning is so far 2023, they said 24,000 Chinese migrant encounters at the southern border. So there's a lot. Now, at first, in my mind, the reason that it's 24,000, and I think that's a large number for actual encounters, because I
Mm-hmm.
think if they're doing bad things, they're going through other channels. But
Yeah.
then the more research I did, they asked these people, why are you here? And they're all saying, well, because I'm escaping communist China and I don't like that.
Right.
Now, here's the other trick 50% of asylum applications for Chinese immigrants are accepted. That's huge. That's way more than other guys. So they're actually able. I mean, if you could leave communist China and come to America, and instead of having Winnie the Pooh for a leader, you could have a decrepit old man. I think I know where you're going to choose, right?
Right.
I
Right.
mean, I think that's an obvious choice. Go
One of
ahead.
the things I was reading recently is that a lot of these immigrants from China that are coming over to the border are getting across easily because they're paying coyotes up to $39,000 for a trip. And if you can pay somebody 39 grand, then they can get you over the border. That's enough money to get you into the United States. Where how do they have $39,000? I have no idea because $39,000 is a lot more money to somebody in China than it is in the United States. So that's a bit of a question that, where are they getting that
Right.
cash from?
Right. Now, so here's the case I guess that's been laid out and that I kind of wonder about is that they're saying that one the Chinese control the shipping ports, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
they control some shipping ports in the United States.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sketchy. So, is it possible they're bringing in weapons and staging things? Then I would point out, and again, I don't know where news comes from. I'm saying this is from a real news website, right? Or this is from the
Mm-hmm.
New York Post on their online thing. That's where I screenshotted it. But Chinese owned farmland next to US military bases. All right. And
Mm-hmm.
that's something they're doing. Now, could people be coming across the border and staging and setting up for bad things to happen? It's possible. I mean, that definitely inflames people's fears, right? I mean, that
Mm-hmm.
that to me is like, oh, that's pretty concerning, and it is. Um, why? Because there was that movie with Tom Cruise, and he was, flying that plane for the CIA, and then they had him bringing like Contras back, and he had a whole like military training camp. Or we used to watch the movies with, in the middle of the desert in like Libya, we'd see like satellite footage, a couple of tents, and every time the satellite would fly over, they all go hide in their tents, and then they
Mm-hmm.
come out, they're training with their AKs and whatever. Is that what's going on at these Chinese owned farms? It's possible. And I would say it's as likely not. That's what the phrase I learned from the VA.
Okay.
That's what they're doing. They weren't talking about the Chinese immigrants, but that's one they like to drop is as likely not. But I don't know what these words mean. I just repeat them. Um, anyway, so you have all these guys staging up in farmland, and they're all around the military bases. So you have containers coming across the border that may or may not be checked. And again, just some have to slip through, right? We keep hearing from the media that those Glock switches, they're putting those through like nothing. And they're bringing fentanyl through like nothing. So if they're bringing fentanyl into the country, is it possible they're bringing guns and weapons into the country? I would have to say yes. But is it also possible that they just happen to want freedom in America? And if we're giving asylum to 50% of them, then I'd say, yeah, maybe that's not so bad.
Hmm.
It's all how you look at it. It's all perspective.
Right.
And the thing is, I hate to say it, we pay this huge government to run things. Like they take a shit ton of our money. I don't know if you
Hmm.
guys realize this, but I know
It's a
you
lot.
do. But a lot of your money goes to the federal government, and they're just stacking it up. And we thought that when we had the Patriot Act and we said, hey, we're going to give up all our rights and let you spy on our phones. And then when they enlisted Facebook and Apple and everybody else, and they started putting them on the payroll to share information with the federal
Hmm.
government, we thought, oh, this is because if they're spying on us, we're going to be way safer. They're going to totally look into things and get to the bottom of it. But I feel like if it's not for people like you and me out here and all the other guys, yeah, Russell Brand, all the, obviously I'm at the same level, you guys see it. And, all these other guys out there, Joe Rogan, everybody digging up stuff. If we weren't digging up stuff and pointing it out, is anybody in the federal government even paying attention?
Hmm.
And again, I don't know that there's a problem, but what's concerning to me is I don't think they know if it's a problem. And
Right.
that's where it falls short.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty clear that the Chinese government is involved in massive amounts of hacker attempts at, I say attempts, actual events that take place with our power companies, our water companies, all of our infrastructure. So it started in 2 years ago. What they call RAT, Random Access Trojan. Basically, what they do is they send emails with attachments to people in these companies on company emails from people that they work with, and they open up the attachment and nothing's there. But what it does is it allows remote access, so they have access to these water plants and power plants. They call it a APT, Advanced Persistence Threat, and it all started in with Operation Shady Rat, and that's
Ooh, I
the
like
People's
the name.
Liberation Army. This is I'm going to give you exactly who it is, and it's going to take me about 5 minutes to tell you exactly who it is. The People's Liberation Army, General Staff's Department's 3rd Department, Unit 61398. So,
I always worry about 1398
yeah,
because
yeah.
those guys, I always
So,
see them, hanging around the coffee cooler, and I'm like, yep, I know
mhm.
about you guys.
So basically, what they're doing is they're designed to loiter. Basically, they have access, but nobody knows that they have access, and they just sit there and wait until they invade Taiwan or whatever they want to do.
Right,
And we're like, "Hey guys, knock that off!" And then all of a sudden, our lights go out and our water starts poisoning us.
right.
So I mean, you know,
Well,
just throwing that out there.
that's one of the big threats. And it's funny because a lot of these show ideas, obviously I'm researching the hell out of everything. I'm watching YouTube all the time as far as what's going on with, in the prepper world. And I am a bit of a conspiracy nut. And I'm obviously doing all those like prepper novels I keep talking about, and,
Right.
checking that out. Right. So one of the big ones lately that I'm going through, I don't even know what it's called. The books in the series are like the bear, the dragon, the lion, and the eagle, right? And
Okay. And they
but
go to Narnia
there's
together?
also, yeah, they go to Narnia, right?
All right.
So the bottom line is, though, in the books, is the Chinese had been kind of staging in the country, and they were hoping to just like wake up in the morning and then go take over things, right? Kind of, like
Uh,
kind of overrun us before we even prepare. So if it happens, you start at 4 in the morning and you have everything taken over by 10 o'clock, nobody has time to react. And I don't know, Kevin, what you remember, but I know when I was in the military, our guard and gate security at the plants weren't exactly
yeah.
as at the military bases weren't exactly as vigilant as some of you might suspect. I
Yeah,
know that's hard to believe.
I remember folding up a dollar bill so that
Mhm.
the George Washington face would be where my picture would be, and having it in my wallet and just showing the wallet, and they just wave you through. Go on.
Yep, come on
Up,
in. You
good.
look like a thug. You're a military guy. I can tell.
Yep.
You look like a criminal. But that's the thing. It was shady. They had a big thing. This is way back when the USS Cole got bombed. And one of
Hmm.
the things that came about of that was none of the guys had bullets in their guns.
Hmm.
And they actually booted the captain and said that was a failing on his part.
Hmm.
And we were all like, wait, no, we all do the same thing stateside on the pier. That's like a standing order that you don't have bullets in the gun, because
Right.
we'd shoot our eye out, obviously. I
Yeah.
mean, come
You
on.
don't know what the hell you're doing.
And but
Uh-huh.
it
You
was
had you
such
had 15 minutes of weapons training, and you're
right.
qualified.
It
Good.
was such a well-known thing that they had no bullets in the gun, that people were coming up and robbing the pier sentries, the guys who stand guard at the end of the pier. They would
Hmm.
take their guns from them
Uh-huh.
because they knew that they didn't have any bullets in them, and they were stealing guns. And this happened more than once.
Hmm.
And that's like where I have firsthand knowledge of it. It happened more than once. And so I'm just saying, it's kind of now, Kevin, when you think of the hardcore guys in the 80s, 90s, 70s, even, do you think we're more prepared when you see the youth of America today? Or do you think we're less prepared? And
Oh,
think of who's in
Jesus. Don't
charge.
don't ask me
This
that
is where I'm
question.
concerned, right?
Uh-huh.
So, like, I don't feel like we got more secure. And then every time we get these attacks on our infrastructure, we just kind of like, oh yeah, don't even worry about it. Like we just had one here. I'm in North Carolina, and near Raleigh, they attacked a bunch of electrical substations, and mysteriously they were critical substations every time. Like they didn't even bother with the ones that don't matter. Like they knew.
Right.
And I imagine this information isn't that hard to access, which ones are critical and which ones are not. They always say, well, if they took down the right 5 in the
Right.
country, or 9, they could take out the whole country. But then they show a map of the 9. It's not
Hmm.
like it's top secret
Yeah, it's
information.
not exactly like it should be, but it's not.
And yeah, it should be. And so you're like, oh, well, they'd never guess the random 9 ones. Well, you just put the map in like USA Today or something, and you're
Uh-huh.
wondering why, it didn't happen. So I'm just saying, there are hacks going on. There are things going on. There's very real reason to be scared that they're just waiting for the right moment. But anyway, the reason I brought up these books is they staged all the people. The idea was that they could take us without just damaging the land, because that's the big thing, is China is after farmland, right, to feed their population. One,
Right.
if they could get a lot of the people out of there and move them over here, and it turns out they don't need people to be their slaves, so they're not really worried about keeping us alive
Right.
to,
I mean,
oh, we
the
can
Chinese
serve them.
population is already slaves. They're good on
They
that.
already have slaves. Slaves
Yeah.
isn't what they're after. It's, so the idea was, And, we're always talking about an EMP, right? EMP shield, code badass. You guys know, right? So we're always talking about that and protection, but maybe they don't do an EMP and they can keep the infrastructure in place. Now, I don't think
Hmm.
you could overtake America without taking out the infrastructure. I feel like you would have to do at a minimum an EMP, which I think would give them a huge leg up.
Hmm.
I don't think you could do it without that because I think you would get too much resistance if people could communicate and network, but I don't
Right.
know. Because I think there is a gun behind every blade of grass in America, and I think
Right.
that's still there. It's funny. I was just watching, and they were saying I saw a video on YouTube, and it was like why every 40-year-old needs to have a YouTube channel, and I'm like, oh, I'm old. Let me see what's going on here, and their point was when you're 40, you have all that knowledge. Like you still like you're skilled, right? When you're
Hmm.
20, you don't have the same knowledge that you have when you're 40, you
Right.
know? And I think there's still a lot of us who are kind of that hardcore, aggressive kind of types in that 40-year-old range. I'm worried about in 20 years from now that people hang on. I mean, obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, you're the guy who's got the skills and going to learn because you wouldn't be paying attention to this stuff if you weren't paying attention.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
actually make it a
we're
habit.
the above and beyond. Yeah. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
I actually make it a habit when I see 20-year-olds that I just beat the shit out of them. It toughens them up.
Right.
It's good for
Right.
them. You know what I mean?
You
I
gotta
recommend
you
everybody
gotta
does that.
build
If
up.
you see somebody 20 or under, just kick the shit out of
Yes. Yes. Kevin, thank you.
them. Do it for
It's
America.
about time. It's about time you said it. This is the problem with America.
No, the truth
You
is,
see a 20-year-old. Yeah.
I was sitting in my yard and I heard like somebody like pull up across the street, like screeching their tires, blasting music, and some kids got
Yeah.
out, and I was like, "Fuck yeah, you're doing
Game
it right.
on.
Yeah, keep it coming, kids."
This is bad.
I don't know, man.
Uh,
I have an affection for bad kids. I like them.
is that what it is?
What are you gonna do?
Your boy's a little bit of a hooligan. I don't know.
He's a bit of a hooligan. I remember as a kid, my dad giving me a hard time about having like get your hair cut. And I was like, I'm never gonna do that to my kid. And then he comes in, and he's got this big shaggy beard and long hair. I'm like, Jesus Christ, cut your hair.
Right? Damn
But
hippies.
I mean,
I know my
goddamn
kid's a
hippies.
long hair too, and I'm always offended by it. I'm like, really, man? You're an adult. Hang on. What's going on here? And then, it's funny. Let me tell you guys about Kevin's parenting, right? Kevin's kid, he's older now. He's already almost done with college. But we'll go back a few years. This kid, 5 years old, we're driving down the road, and I'm driving. He's in the back seat. Kid throws like a rope around my neck and is choking me out while I'm driving. I'm like, and I'm like literally being choked to the headrest. And he's back there, and I'm grabbing back, trying to drive down the road. And I'm like, what the hell, man? And then we get out of I pull the car over. I grab him out of the car and just start beating on him. And he's like, what? Why are you going after me? And I'm like,
Yeah.
you can't choke somebody when you're driving down the road. And
You're
like,
also in the
fine.
car.
Right.
But what are you gonna do? Bad little kids.
Yeah.
I like them.
This is what you're dealing with Kevin. Obviously, I didn't beat any children, for just
Yeah, right. Yeah.
statute of limitations.
I mean, technically, yes. Yeah, exactly.
It was a joke. All right. But no, he did throw the rope around my neck and choking me out while I'm driving. And I'm like, you out of your mind? Yeah. That's, whatever.
America.
Kevin, what kind of kids are you putting out there?
All the worst ones, man. Somebody's gotta be out there fucking shit up still. I'm too old to be doing that anymore.
Now we have other concerns. It turns out it's not just the Chinese that are coming over the border in mass, right? Pretty much all South America, Latin America, and there's a lot of gangs, and they basically see untapped potential. And I gotta say, our law enforcement it's funny because I have a problem of wanting them to do more and wanting them to do less at the same time. It's
Hmm.
funny. I was talking to a trooper, and I'll explain that. I was talking to a trooper a long time ago, and he's like, "Yeah, I pull over the minivan with the mom and whatever because I know I'm not going to get shot. Anytime it
Right.
looks like trouble, I feel like a lot of them are like, I'm not getting into that one.
Yeah.
Ooh, that guy looks like he might have a gun. I'm not pulling him over. I'm
Hmm.
pulling over, the one that looks like it's safe and easy for me. I'll
Right.
stop and frisk the 13-year-old and teach him to obey because I'm not worried about him. But that kid over there wearing the NWA shirt, I'm just gonna let him
Yeah.
go.
The kid with the neck tattoos, I don't know about him.
Yeah, the neck tattoos, the teardrop, that guy's gonna just keep moving. And that's what
Hmm.
I feel like. Like law enforcement, they're not getting involved. And I understand to some extent they're overwhelmed, right? They don't want to get involved because there's a very small budget for our regular police. Now, as we go up into the federal levels, money seems to flow abundantly. But
Hmm.
regular police forces versus the population they're dealing with, how large they are, they're expected to do a lot with very little. And it is you can't take on things that are big horrible, and I think that's why a lot of stuff kind of falls through the cracks, and that's where we get into trouble. But Kevin, where are we at?
I think I mean, honestly, I'm kind of that asshole too, you know. I have an NWA shirt, but whatever. Um there are, like you said, there are a lot of gangs and things like that come over the border. And I was actually talking to somebody from Puerto Rico, and they say that he said, according to him, that Puerto Rico was a beautiful place with well-behaved people. And then we
Mm,
started sending all their bad people back to Puerto Rico, and now
hmm
Puerto Rico is a shithole. Honduras is the same way.
it,
We catch MS-13 gang members and we send them back to Honduras, and now Honduras is a shithole. It wasn't a shithole before, so it's America's fault
mm,
somehow. But whatever, bro. Get your shit together.
is this like England and Australia where they're like,
Yeah,
hey, let's send all our criminals to Australia? And then they're like, why are they all so rebellious and angry all the time?
right. Yeah, it's
But are
same
they
same
angry?
sort of
Maybe
shit.
they're not with all the whole "G'day mate" thing. I mean, they seem like they wanna have barbecues
It's,
all the time
they
and
seem
shrimp.
like friendly people.
A
Yeah,
Nobody's really drinking those Foster's oil cans. I know we had,
no,
Hamish and some of the guys from back in the day here that, are always listening, and they told us that those oil cans might not really be a thing. But, I mean, as far as everybody
yeah.
drinking,
Foster's is actually not Australian beer, turns out. But
it's American Australian for beer,
mm,
one of those. That's
yeah,
how things
yeah.
go. But anyway,
The whole
so
shrimp on
there
the
are
Barbie
lots of
thing, they don't call barbecues Barbies, and they call shrimp prawns. So I don't know where that whole thing came from, but whatever.
whatever. It's a crazy world. So anyway, we do have things like MS-13 and all these guys. They're in my mind setting up trafficking and trafficking both people and drugs and guns. I mean, we thought it was just the Sons of Anarchy guys, that were running the guns, but it turns out there's lots of people doing that kind of thing, back and forth. But is it really more they're taking the guns out of America and bringing them to Mexico? Because I feel like we have lots of guns here.
You know what I'm
Like I don't
saying?
even feel like we need to bring them
Yeah.
over the border.
I live in New
And
York that has
obviously,
very restrictive gun laws. It ain't a big deal though. Everyone's got one.
it's got to
So,
be drugs, right? I,
mhm,
I know that there is legit tons of Chinese fentanyl and that kind of stuff going on, and
right. And I think a
that
lot
is
of that
part
stuff
of
though
the
isn't
country.
getting smuggled by the Chinese. It's getting manufactured in China and being smuggled by cartels from South America
I
up
think
to the United States,
100%.
you know?
No, I think 100%.
But
Yeah, no, it's a crazy world out there. That's what I can give you. And I don't know, Kevin. It's an ugly world.
all
Yeah.
right, so there are
So
92 ports. Let's talk about this real.
Let's get numbers.
Like there are 92 Chinese ports worldwide that are not in China.
Okay.
They started it all out with the Belt and Roads program. I know most of you guys probably heard about that. Basically, it's a Chinese program where they help underdeveloped countries by giving them loans to build of infrastructure situation. They don't charge 1.2% interest; they charge 6.8% interest. It's a predatory loan that makes sure that they're not able to ever pay the loan back, and they take things that they have as collateral, which are usually massive ports. Sri Lanka and over or have been taken advantage of by China by these predatory loans and have massive amounts of infrastructure seized by the Chinese government. So heads up, don't take any loans from China. If you're a third world country, try and find a better interest rate, because the reason they're charging these interest rates is because they know they're not going to be able to pay the loans back. They don't give out loans to people they expect to get paid back from. It's only people that nobody else will loan money to. And they don't have to. They're getting they don't have to like convince the government officials to take these loans. They just pay them to do it. You know what I mean? You just get paid, and then you're taking a predatory loan. You know it's going to be bad for your country, but your bank account's bigger, so things are going to work out, at least for you.
I was watching a thing, and they were like, sometimes it's less than like $10,000 to get people to betray their country. It's not a big,
it's not much.
fee. It's like, hey, you're in debt, and like $3,000 would really help if you could just get out from under that credit card. We could work that out for you.
Yeah, I remember reading about an FBI agent that was compromised by Russia. This was about 10 years ago. And his the total amount of money that he got was $200,000 in like diamonds. Like $200,000, bro. That's you can't even buy a house anymore with $200,000. Like, what are you doing? He's doing it because it was exciting. You know what I mean? He needed that fucking rush. And that's why it wasn't for the money. The money was like a little benefit. But seriously, like how you're going around trading in diamonds for cash? What? Like that seems like way more work than it should be to trade, betray your country. But whatever. I mean, what do I know?
And I feel like, how would I even know they're real? I don't know.
You know what I mean?
I guess I'm becoming a diamond expert if I'm letting you pay me in 200,000 in diamonds,
Yeah.
I'm going to have to do some research, but it's crazy out there. And so the bottom line is, I think there's a lot of people coming over the border. I think there's a lot going on there. I think it is ridiculous. I think our country is definitely overwhelmed. And I think it is really collapsing our system just that we can't support it. I don't know if you guys have ever tried to go to the doctor, but it's not easy, right? Because I mean, you get an appointment and it's like, 2-3 months out, right?
Right.
We're not set up to handle the influx of people. I know our schools in certain areas are having a very hard time of, we have language issues because it's not just all speaking Spanish. There's a bunch of different things going on here that we have to learn to communicate and deal with and educate people. The big thing that's always in it for me is we're not necessarily vaccinating or checking for diseases, and a lot of things were coming back. They were talking about a couple of years back of, an uprising in like polio and things that were completely eradicated in the United States because they're coming over and nobody's checking or doing anything. Right.
Right. Right.
Another
and then you got you've got all these stay-at-home moms that are like, I don't vaccinate my kids. It's got mercury in there. You're poisoning your children. And then they get polio and they die and whatever.
Right. Right. They're all going to be autistic, but they're not going to be but they are going to be in a wheelchair. Right.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
So that's the drawback.
That's where you get into trouble is, I don't know. It's just a mess. Right. So it's overwhelming our system. Like personally, and we do have people unloading their jails, countries saying, hey, we don't have to support our criminals. We just give them a bus ticket to America. And then we get rid of a lot of that. And the numbers are pretty high that we're letting a lot of criminals in. Now, I know people
Right.
are like, oh, well, they said they weren't criminals when they showed up at the border. And how
Yeah.
could we
Well, I
possibly
mean,
know? We don't have
yeah,
time to fingerprint everybody.
yeah, and
Facial recognition.
technically, right, technically, immigrants have a lower crime rate than citizens, but that's legal and illegal immigrants combined. So illegal immigrants, who knows? Because nobody's actually checking that because nobody gives a shit, and they, you know, they're not going to stop anything anyway. So there's approximately 13.7 million illegal immigrants in the United States right now. There's only 335 million people in the whole damn country, and 13.7 of them are here illegally. So, I mean, I don't know what you do with that, but I don't know. Seems like a lot.
It is a lot. Kevin, it's concerning. So, anyway, appreciate it. You guys like and subscribe. I appreciate you're always here and follow us in the chat. It's nice to interact with you and get feedback as we do the episodes. I love comments, like and subscribe, reviews, all that really helps. Share it with your friends. Anyway, I really appreciate it. So, with that, I would say stay safe and we will talk to you guys next week.